Hi, my name is David Kelsey. Today we're going to be working on some practice exercises for my lecture on causal reasoning, lecture 14 of the critical thinking class that I run. And so the first set of exercises, we're going to be doing about 6 of these. And the 6 exercises, we're going to just quite simply try to determine what the cause stated is or implied, and then what the effect of that cause is. Okay, so just try to determine the cause and the effect involved, cause and effect involved in each of these examples. So the first one says, getting a new player certainly improved the brass sections, right? So here it seems like improving the brass sections is your effect, and the cause of that would be getting the new player, right? Second example, despite the injuries, the Dolphins kept winning. It must have something to do with their positive attitude. Here the effect seems to be that the Dolphins keep winning, and the cause of that seems to be their positive attitude, right? Must have been their positive attitude. The next example, the board has lost faith in the president. Why else would they ask her to resign, right? So the effect here is that the board asked the president to resign, and it seems like the implied cause here is that the board lost faith in the president, right? The next example, it says, if I were you, I wouldn't wear an outfit like that. It makes you look too old, right? So the cause here seems to be wearing an outfit like that, and the effect is that it makes you look too old, okay? The next example, it says, why am I crying? I'm crying because you never remember my birthday. Okay, so here the cause seems to be not remembering the birthday, and the effect seems to be that this person is crying. Okay. And the last one, she had a great workout because she is sweating. So here the cause seems to be the great workout, and the effect is the sweating. Okay. Okay, so that's the first set of exercises, and for the next set of exercises, we're going to just be determining whether or not we should use common thread reasoning or relevant difference reasoning. And if you remember, the what qualifies one or the other is just quite simply how many times the effect has occurred. If you have an effect that's occurring for the very first time, that would be relevant difference reasoning, right? And then if you have an effect that occurs over and over, we use common thread reasoning because we want to try to find the pattern involved, right? The cause that's common to all occurrences of the effect. Okay, so that being said, right, the first one says, the first example, every time a president has held office for 2 consecutive terms, the opposing party wins the following election. I bet it's because people want change. Okay, now you notice here that it says every time. So this is literally a statement that's, I think, true actually, about every time a president has held office for 2 consecutive terms. So that's a repeating occurrence of this effect, right? That the opposing party wins the following election. So in this case, what we want to do is use common thread reasoning, because you have this reoccurring effect, right? Which is namely that the opposing party wins every time this happens, and it seems to be implied that this has happened, many times, right? So that would be common thread reasoning. The next example. It says, maybe the reason he keeps getting sick is because of all that aspirin he takes, right? Here again, the effect is that he keeps getting sick. So it's a recurring effect. So again, what we want to use is the common thread reasoning here as well. The next example, it says, I mowed the lawn this morning for the first time ever, and wouldn't you know, I start sneezing up a storm. I bet it's an allergy, right? So here it says, I mowed the lawn this morning for the very first time ever, right? So this is the very first time this has ever occurred, right? And he starts sneezing. So of course, this would be relevant difference reasoning, right? We use relevant difference reasoning to find the cause of something when we have an effect that's occurred for the very first time, like in this case, okay? So the next example, he's in a bad mood today, you say, I bet it's all the soda he drank yesterday. So here, again, we don't really have any mention of a pattern. In fact, we just have mention of this happening today. And so we would want to use relevant difference reasoning in this case as well, right? The next example, perhaps his eyesight has deteriorated for the last few years because of all that sugar he eats. Maybe he has diabetes and doesn't even realize it, right? Here, what we're talking about is a pattern that's occurred over the last few years, right? His eyesight is deteriorating. So again, what we want to use is common thread reasoning here. What's common to this sort of pattern over the last couple of years? Okay, next example then. These last 6 months, I've never felt better. I bet it's that slice of toast and cantaloupe I've been having every morning. Okay, here's a claim about an effect that's occurring over the last 6 months. We have a pattern here, right? And so we want to look for the common thread in that pattern. So we're going to use common thread reasoning here to help us. Next example. Well, what do you know? I worked out yesterday afternoon and slept really well last night. Okay, so in this example, again, we have a kind of one-off thing, right? It happened yesterday. I worked out yesterday afternoon and slept really well last night. So you have this kind of one-off effect. And so this is, again, an example, what we would say, of relevant difference reasoning, right? You want to use relevant difference reasoning to determine the cause here. Okay. The next example, it says, it's odd. I've seen a huge number of snails this year and the roses have mildew. Don't know which caused which, but one of them obviously caused the other. So here again, we're talking about a kind of pattern, right? A pattern that's occurred over the entire year, right? As it says, I've seen a huge number of snails this year, right? So this would be an example where we would use common thread reasoning. We want to find what's common about all these snails for this year, right? Next example, it says 6 of the last 7 teams that have won the World Series have had a home field advantage. It's not a coincidence, okay? So in this case then, again, we have a kind of pattern. We have an effect that's occurred actually over the last 7 years. And so you want to use common thread reasoning here to determine the cause of those reoccurring effects, okay? Then the last example we'll look at, it says, what else could have caused the flooding all over the house? It has got to be the busted water pipe, right? So this is a case where you have flooding, right, in your house, and it's a one-off thing. Obviously, you don't get flooding every day. It occurs one time because of this busted water pipe. And so you want to use relevant difference reasoning in a case like this to determine what might cause this one occurrence of the flooding. So, okay, well, that is it for the exercises and for this lecture then. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you learned something about causal reasoning. And thanks so much. We'll see you next time.